Welcome to Blender Frenzy. I am Justin, and today we are going to be making this transition here that we can use to put over an image to transition from one image to another or one video to another in the video sequence editor. So it's going to look something like this. If I just press play, that's what it looks like, and I'll leave that loop here, and then we're going to come out into our world here, and let's just go to let's see, material preview mode. Yeah, so you can see, let's just hide our camera, see what's happening here. We're using geometry nodes to do this, and we're using a proximity empty here. So if I just grab this empty, you can see if I move it around, it affects the scale of those tiles there. And then we just put keyframes, animate it, and it looks like this. And then, of course, in our rendered mode and in camera mode, this is what it looks like. And then we just render this out into an image sequence and use it in the video sequence editor. And to give you a sneak peek as an example of what that looks like, it will look something like this, using that as a transition. So let's get started. I'm going to open up a new instance of Blender using our Blender launcher. And before we get started, here is my node setup in case you want to take a screenshot of this. This is the flow that I use, but I will also walk you through this. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this over here so I can look at it. So we're going to open up geometry nodes in our new Blender instance and just adjust these here. With our cube selected, I'm going to click new and then pin this here so that I can select other things and it will still stay. I'm actually going to select my light and X to delete that. We don't need that. I'm going to rename cube to grid because that is what we are actually going to use. So I'm going to delete this input and add in a grid. So we've got our grid here, and let's just zoom in and go into our top mode by pressing 7. You can also see my shortcut keys here. Let me adjust those. Okay, so here is our grid. Let's go into wireframe mode so we can see the wireframe. And right now we have only 3 vertices and on the X and the Y, so let's just let's do 12 and then 12. I would select these here so we can see them a little bit better. So there we go, something like that. So we're creating little tiles in this, and now we have to separate them. So basically what we're going to do is add in a split edges node here. You can't really see anything right now because we haven't scaled them yet, but we can do that now. We can add in a scale elements and plug that right in here. And now if we adjust the scale, you can see, ta-da, they have all been split and all of the elements are being scaled by their own individual origins. Now, I think that's built in here. I don't think the origin point, I don't think it's taking this into account for the origin point because that's 3D cursor. No, it's not. It's still individual origins because it's built into these nodes here. Okay, so scale 1. Now in the geometry node setup that I just showed you to take a screenshot, I had an extrude mesh here, and that basically just allows you to extrude it in 3D space, and then I just scaled it way down, something like this. This is actually not all that necessary with what we're going to do, so I'm going to experiment and I'm just going to leave this off for now. We're just going to just plug that in straight away like this. Because the thickness really only we need that if we're flipping the tiles, which I'll try to do in another tutorial. But for this, it's actually just strictly scaling, so I don't think we're going to need a backside to that at all. So we want to actually control this scale with a proximity object. So I'm just going to add in an empty and do a sphere. And it doesn't matter all that much what you add in here. I am going to mess with the scale though, because this is too small for this grid. So I could do 12 and then 12 here, like that. But I think In my example, I had 20 and 20, but I don't think it matters all that much. It just, you can mess with these to however many splits that you want. Making the squares smaller or larger, you can make them rectangle shape in either direction. So I'll do 12 across the board and we can adjust it later. But now we need some nodes to add some calculation to scale each of the tiles of the grid based on the proximity of this object. And for this, I'm actually going to, let's go to lock it on the Z location, because if I'm in 3D space and I press G to grab, I don't want to move that up and down. I just want to move that on the floor. So let's add in, the first thing we're going to add in is a position node. And then we're going to add in object info node. And then we're going to combine the position and the location with, oh, look at that, I can add something. Oh, let's see if I can do this. Vector math. Oh, that's interesting. Add, that's fine. Oh, hey, look at that, that's cool. Except for this is going to be on the bottom. And we're going to set this to distance, and then we're going to get the position. So we have the position with the location of this. I don't know why we need both of these, but we do. So this is our empty. We're just going to call this our prox for proximity, and we're going to select it from here. But we're going to plug this into the scale. But if we plug it straight into the scale, you can see wow, that's doing something, but it's not at all what we want. So it's a start. It's a start. So we're going to need to add some things here. Actually, just a couple of regular math nodes. So we have the vector math, and then set to distance, and then the first one here we're going to set to multiply add. I'm going to duplicate that here and set this one just to regular multiply. Okay, and now you can start to see we are having some effect here. So we need to adjust these values, and what I had here, let's put -0.1, and there you go. So you can see, all right, we're starting to see, based on the location of our proximity object, we are adjusting that scale. Except it's backwards. I want this, when this is in the center, let's just snap that to the cursor right in the center. I want this to be at a scale of 1, so it's at full size. And then when we pull it away, I want the tiles to shrink. So we're going to have to adjust these down here. So basically I just played with these sliders a bit, and what did I have? I did a multiplier of 1, and then down here it was -24. So we have something that looks like this. Now this is still, it's almost what we want, but we're having some bowing here, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's because we need to clamp this. I see I have a clamp there, so we're going to click clamp, yes. So now it's nice and smooth. Oh, and I keep. We can probably adjust that distance. So, for example, if it's right over here, we can click this slider to have more or less of an effect. The addend, keeping the multiplier at 1, or I mean we could push that up too to affect that. So each of these are going to give us different results, but you can see we want to make sure when we're in the middle here, it is at full size. That's why having that as 1, and then just crank that up until, yeah, we have something like that. Now, if we scale this up, that doesn't affect it at all. You can, if you want to use the scale instead, you can plug that one in there, and then you can see that. Now, this gives some weird results because it's not scaling in the middle, and I know that there's a way with math nodes and stuff that you can try that. I did try to multiply it with a vector math by 0.5 or subtract it by 0.5. I don't remember exactly, but we're just going to use the location of this. So just pulling this back until, or at any direction. So I went up like this. Let's just go up into top mode here. And basically I just pulled it back like that. So we start here, and then let's do Shift S, selection of cursor, right smack dab in the middle, and then this is where we can make our keyframe. So I'm going to pull up a timeline, and then on this one we're going to, with our empty selected, location keyframe, there we go, just make that summary. And then I think I tried it at 20 at first, but basically pulled it to where all of them are now scaled to 0, and then location keyframe, and then we can play that. But that goes a little bit too fast, so I think I just dragged this to 40 and just slowed it down a little bit. Yep, so just something like that. And then let's get our camera situated. So just take our camera. Now I could, let's see, let's go back to the beginning here. I could just position the preview, go up to view, align view, and then align active camera to view, Control Alt numpad 0. Let's go into top mode. Here we go. Center video cursor. Okay, so you have to be in top mode, but now we have that centered. Then we can do Control Alt numpad 0, and now the camera should be right in the middle there, which is good. And let's just zoom into the camera here, and I'm going to go to my camera properties and then go to orthographic instead of perspective, and then change the orthographic scale to where it lines up just on those sides there. Press Shift to go slower if you need to go slower for more control on that slider. Okay, so now we can press play, and that is what we have. But let's set a material, because right now we don't really have any material set. So with our grid selected, let's go to our material tab, and it has the default material. I'm just going to name this to white, and then change the surface to an emission surface. And then come to render properties. We want to make sure our color management is, instead of filmic, it needs to be standard. And then this is our standard white to use for that mask. Now, when it is revealed, so when we reveal the background, we want the background to be completely black. So let's go to our rendered mode so we can see that. And then our world tab, we can take that color and pull that down all the way to black. If we disable our overlays, and we have nothing. And that's because if we enable our overlays, and you see something is happening here, you can see that, but we haven't set a material in our geometry nodes yet. So we have to come over back to our geometry nodes, and at the very end here, let's add in a set material node, change that to our white color, and ta-da, now we have this, and we can disable those overlays again to see what we have. Perfect. So now all we have to do is set our frame range and render this out into an image sequence. So let's go to our rendering workspace up here, and then I'm going to pull out another window, duplicate this, and change it to the 3D viewport. Let's scroll up in the top header bar here and change this to our rendered mode. And then let's go back to the beginning, and we had it at 40, so let's go ahead and end this at 40, and hover your mouse over the timeline, press home to zoom in there. Let's go back to the beginning, scroll out here. Oh yeah, we need to be in our camera mode here, so hover your mouse over here, 0, there we go. Now we can see our camera mode, but I'm going to go into our camera, so let's select the camera, go into the properties over here, and then in viewport display, I'm going to come to Passepartout and crank that all the way up to 1 so we can't see anything outside of that. This is going to be for adjusting and matching our preview to our rendered view. So we want to make sure this says render result. And if we press F12, then this is what we should see. Now, if you don't see this, you need to go to your output tab all the way down to the bottom where it says post-processing and uncheck compositing and sequencer. You should probably do this anyway, and the reason it wasn't pulling it from the compositor or the sequencer is because we didn't have anything in there. We haven't used the VSE yet. We haven't put any strips in there, but if there were strips in the video sequence editor and you had this checked, it would render from that first. So make sure we are rendering from the 3D view, so uncheck both of those, and now it should render out properly. So now we can do this. If you're familiar at all with my tutorials, you know I like to pick random places in our scene to render just to make sure that they match with our render result. So here's our 3D preview. Here's our render result. That looks good. We can also disable overlays to make that even more clear. And so just choose some of these. F12, just random frames, just to make sure they match. Just this little step is going to save you a lot of headaches later on so that you don't have things that are out of sync or rendering improperly. So all of this looks good here, except for we have some duplicate frames. And what I mean by that is you can see that about the last frame that we have something is frame 33, but on frame 34 it is all black. And so from 34 to frame 40, it's just going to render out black images. So those are all duplicates. We don't need those. So I'm just going to go to the last frame that we actually have something, which is 33, and we're going to end it there. And same thing at the beginning. I think 8 is where the last frame is that it's completely all white. So we're going to start it there because on the next frame is when you can actually see that animation start. And I believe this is probably because we're animating on a curve still. We didn't make that linear, which is fine, but we're just going to put the start frame there, and my keys, my shortcut keys are probably going to be different than yours. I have changed my shortcut keys from the default Blender shortcut keys, so you can always set the start and end frames here manually as well. Okay, so now we have our animation, and all we have to do is render it out into an image sequence. And you know, I haven't saved this, and so we should that's probably a good idea to save. Okay, and then let's set our frame. So pick your resolution. I like everything here. Frame rate is fine. Okay, and then our output, I'm just going to click the folder and then navigate or create a folder you want to render those images into. I already did one earlier. You can see image sequence. I am SQ underscore tile shrink. I'm going to put this as O2 because I already did this once. Okay, and then down here with the name, I'm going to just say tile shrink underscore O2, and then one more underscore, and that is to separate the frame numbers that are going to be added on that. When you check file extensions, that it will automatically put the extension, but also the frame range. So the underscore is a nice separator there. So PNG, we don't need that because there's no alpha, so JPEG, and then black and white. Obviously, if you're rendering color, you want to do RGB, and then I'm going to uncheck overwrite and save it, and I think we're ready to go. So we can either press Control F12 or come up here to render animation. And then you can see it renders that animation all the way out. Doesn't take too long because it's really short. All right, now that our image sequence is rendered out, let's make a new scene. I'm going to type this one, GeoNodes, and then I'm going to click here, create a new scene by copying settings, and then title this one VSE. So if I come here, I can switch back and forth between my geometry nodes and my video sequence editor. This is going to help you, especially when you have an output here, because we're going to be outputting a video rather than an image sequence. So I'm just going to scroll down over here, click this plus, video editing, going to get rid of this, hover over here, press home, and now I'm just going to add in an image and a video real quick. Okay, so let's go back to beginning here and snap those to the beginning. Let's end this here. So now we have our image overlaying on top of our video. You can see that's our video here. Just Justin as an old man because I am. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our image sequence that we just created as a mask for this top one here. So let's go to the beginning. Let's add in our image sequence by going to our tile shrink O2. And now you can see all the images in our image sequence. And they have our title, and then we have the underscore followed by the frame and .jpg, which was added automatically. So I'm just going to make sure it starts at 8 and then counts up to 33, and press A. And if it doesn't, by the way, then you can actually come to display mode. You can change your display modes right here. And if it's backwards or out of sync, it might be because you're sorting it by different things. If you sort it by size, they're all different sizes, so it's all over the place. So you want to make sure you're sorting it by name, starting at 8, counting up to 33. Add image sequence, and there we go. We've got this. Okay, and we don't need to hear my voice, so I'm just going to hide that. So now we just need to tell this to use this. If we take this handle and press G to grab, and then I press Control to snap that, I can snap it to different points of interest, such as this handle right here. And now that they're the same size. So with the birthday image, let's go to Modifiers, Add Strip Modifier, Mask, and keep this as strip, and then choose our tile shrink. And of course we don't see anything happening because we still have the tile shrink on top of that. So all we have to do, very easy solution, hide the one on top. And now you can see we have our transition from our image to our video underneath. And it doesn't matter, this can be used on the video as well. All we have to do is come here and go to modifiers, do the same thing. But let's say we want to have this kind of hang on the video. Well, let's just take the bottom one. Oh. Say we want to have it hang on the picture before it starts transitioning. No problem. All we have to do is make the image a little bit longer and then take our tile shrink and then snap it by holding down Control to the end. So that way when we play it, it will just hang on that until it reaches this. And then it will use the transition right where the transition starts. Now it works like this because the transition starts off white and then it shrinks into black. And white is fully opaque or fully visible, and black is fully transparent or fully invisible. If you need this to be the opposite, if you need it to be invisible and then become visible, you can actually just switch these colors here by using, if we make sure we have the image sequence selected, go to your modifiers and then go to curves, and we just need to switch the top and the bottom. So bring this here and then bring the bottom out here, and now we've inverted the colors, and so it starts off invisible and then it goes to visible. But of course this doesn't make any sense at the end, so we're going to put that at the beginning. And then if we can take these over here, so we have our video playing, and then it starts off invisible. Remember, oh, of course we've got to hide this, but invisible is black, visible, so hide that. And then it's going to have the opposite effect, and it's going to slowly reveal the image on top. So the way I would use this is something like this. Let's go back. I'm actually going to get rid of that because I want it to be at the end here, and I want it to start with our image. And then we'll take this and we'll bring this and we'll snap this here to where it starts to be revealed. And then I can unhide the audio, and let's see what this looks like here. Okay, that's a little bit too long, so let's just shorten that up a little bit here and bring everything.
Hi, welcome to Blender Frenzy. My name is Justin.
It's a little bit out of sync here.
And now I'm...
You know what? Let's do playback and play every frame. Here we go. Let's do sync to audio. Is that going to work better? Let's try that.
Hi, welcome to Blender
perfect.
Frenzy.
Better.
My name is Justin.
There you go. And you can do that with a whole bunch of different things. I mean, I could do that with 2 videos. I could do that with a video and an image, 2 images. Anything basically that you see in your preview here, you can use the transition on to transition to something else. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. I know that a lot of you really wanted this a long time ago when I created my masking tutorial. I had a different version of this with the older form of geometry nodes. And even though this isn't exactly like this, because I had the tiles flipping in the other one, which I will try to do also in another video, but the scaling is a lot easier, and I thought I could get that out sooner than later. But that's it for this one. You'll see me in the next one.